Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, thank you, everyone, for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares with me. From the heart, I thank every one of you. Thank you. Well, getting into what I want to touch on today. Today, I want to keep my promise on speaking on the camarada Spooky from Pomona Cherryville, and it's going to circle around Pomona Mike, right? Most of all, I really think Spooky has a real interested story, right? At least when I met him, because doing most of my time in the state, you always hear about camaradas that are working for a pili in the feds and is not welcome in the state, point blank. They could tolerate to some degree if another carnal from the state asks for a seat or is there, they work it out, and if not, it's war, right? Because as you guys know, pretty sure by now, throughout all that's put out, you guys can see how much envy they have against each other, right? They're always trying to find something to politic. Nevertheless, like I mentioned before, on this yard there was numerous appeals, right, in the feds where we were at, and I guess something had happened with the brothers, right, the DC blacks, in a different joint, and the camarada drove up. Keep in mind, I was short to get moved right from here at this moment. I had been taking Clecha from Sana, and things have been folding. And basically, let me just state this right before I go. In past videos, I have said Pomona Mike. Now that he's going to the feds, he has a lot of things to answer for. For those that don't know, right? And one of them is the dirty politics he was doing to maintain Pomona. You see, if you really sit back and think, there ain't too many Pilis that for so many years have run a city, right? And no other Pili has tried to come in. He succeeded in basically working on taking out Frank V and politic against a couple Pilis, right? That's for a different story to maintain Pomona. But for those that don't know, he's strong not with his neighborhood. He's strong with other clicas, Cherryville, Pomona Sur, the rest, the homies from 12th Street, they're mostly under different pilis. I mean, there's some, but mostly for some reason they don't like to work for Pomona, right? Or Mike, excuse me. And anyways, getting back to Spooky, again, he drove up and I got told by the pili, look, that's a good camarada right there. He just has his priorities wrong, right? He needs to straighten up and look around where he's at. At first, I didn't really take to it, right? I just took it as a warning, like, estudialo, study, fool, you know? So I took his advice and started conversating with the homie, right? Most all, we started talking about Pee Wee's issue. And when I was in Tehachapi, how one of the strongest battles or homies that was supporting me in the 180 to take the yard was Toto from Cherryville, right? And just where they were at, and just getting to cross words with each other to get to know each other, per se, right? He knew my homeboy Flaco and other homies that got through the feds, right, from my neighborhood. So, anyways, as we're going, he basically asked me, which peelies were on the yard. I told him I took him through, do a little stroll, right, had him introduce to him so he's able to pay his respects. And we kept walking. To my surprise, though, as we kept walking, Big Joe is the one that approached him, and I try to pull away, excuse me, which to show respect. What I mean is, Joe started speaking with him, so it was none of my business, right? So I try to pull away, but without being disrespectful, right? I mean, when you're trusted, you're able to just be a fly in the wall, I guess, right? So, anyways, you know, it was, I didn't feel it was wise because it would come out as disrespect, right? Like, I don't want to hear your BS or some type like that. So, anyways, basically, Joel spoke heavy to the homie, right? What I mean is basically telling him, like, look, the issues you were having over there, something happened on the yard here, you could cry to Pomona Mike, or you ask for an outlet from him, ain't happening. You need to get into the fold and look for a brother here, you know? And again, it was none of my business. And I didn't really know, to be sincere, what they were speaking on, right? And, anyways, they had their conversation. The homie took that advice that Joe was giving him, and Joe pushed. So, anyways, we kept strolling, and I'm the type that, you know, it's none of my business. I ain't gonna ask. If you want to tell us feelings, if not, I respect it too, because I know it could be a bad thing, right? To get into other people's business more than you should, because sometimes things ricochet and they bounce off people and hit you. It's just prison, right? But anyways, as we're walking, he told me like, "Look, camarada, could I run something through you?" I told him, "Simon," and basically started telling me, Pomona Mike is one of them individuals that he gets his way. You know, I know to keep away from him, believe me, from the state, because he has that angle to him, right? More so with people from Pomona. There's a reason why 12th Street don't really work with him, and it has to do he holds your family, and holds you to do things, dangling your family, like you know, the homie. I guess has a big family in Pomona, right? And a lot of them are vatos, they're carnales, brothers, like real blood brothers. And I guess like, hey, you haz esto, do this and this and that, everything will be cool. If one of you messes up, you all will go. That type of thing, right? And you know, the homie, he was being a soldado, he was being a camarada, right? In the sense that this was happening and he didn't express it to no other pili. Because it could be bad for him and he knew it, right? Because he was speaking ill of a Billy, and it would be rare for a Billy to open up an investigation. But at least at this time, I think one would have been open, right? Because again, Mike was in bad with a couple Billys in the feds, right? due to his actions, and but the camarada didn't want to do it. He wanted he had other brothers on the street in the state, and he just wanted to just keep doing his thing. And I asked him, with all due respect, why Joe was upset. I don't need to know the conversation. I just want to know the angle, right, of his way of speaking to you. And he said, basically, even though he's in the feds, everything he pushes, he sends to Mike out of respect, right? And the pili that's on the yard wants his share. Mike says, "Chale." I don't know if you guys seen a pattern. It's a common thing, right? For some reason, you get into this sense of mind, right? That's why I don't. From the gate, I've told everybody it's never wise to be under one pili. Yes, you're a campolero firmes. You get to a spot, you put yourself in this position for the pili that has the jardín. You do your thing, you push on. You get to the next place, you put yourself in this position. They might not need you, they might need you, but you know all that. I gotta take this for you. I gotta do this strictly for you. Another pili asks you to do something. No, I'm under so and so. I can't. That's disrespect. And for some reason, a lot of camaradas, they tend to get tangled in that tornado, right? Of being loyal to one pili. I recently was told some individual try to clean up his actions, right? By trying to stay when a carnal falls, his crew don't fall. That's BS. You know, that individual that spoke at these tries to clean up how he had a lot of camaradas loyal to him because he wanted a big reach and how he took him down when he's read it. It's just fact. And don't take my word for it. Look and hear what's out there, you know. But anyways, getting back to Spooky. As time would go, right, I would tell him eventually, that he shouldn't be representing a Billy from the state and the feds. It's a no-no. It's a bigger offense than what it would be in the state. The federal faction, man, they don't want the state on the yards at all. There's already too much competition if you guys get it. It ain't like the state where you have sureños, norteños, uh, woodpile, brothers, the others, you know, five, six factions. Nah, in the feds, you have paisas, you have, you know, like I mentioned before, isleños, you have los árabes, you have the DC blacks. Texas alone has so many factions. Arizona, well, I could go on, right? And everybody's doing their thing. So the Feds faction of the MA don't really want the state in whatever little's coming into them. I don't know if that makes sense. So I told my advice is look for Pili, right? If you want to be in that mix, look for a Pili and start pushing away from Mike. And then again, the dangling of his family came along, and I told him, well, you gotta really consider, that's not a Pili you want to be under, period, even if he was present. Because, that goes above being punked. You're not doing things because your heart's telling you to do them. You're doing them because you're being punked. straight up, you know. I always had this thing where I'm straightforward with what I think, right? Especially with camaradas, because I expect it back, right? Anyways, as time will come, without speaking ill of the camarada, because he had a good head on his shoulders, believe me. He had a good heart, but he also had that problem, right? That he liked to use black to the point that he would ask for too much to be fronted, and he wasn't really doing much. For one, even if he, whatever little he was getting which he wasn't, right? I'll be honest on this yard. He was sending to Mike. He was throwing everyone against him in the feds for it. And then I came to realize, what was going on. I don't know where the he said, she said went wrong, right? I'm not gonna say the homie was telling a Pato Ventura to me about Mike, because I personally knew Mike, and he wasn't the first camarada that was going through them issues. Just leave it at that. But you know, Mike was paying something for him, but he got fed up. Homie had a big habit, and all of a sudden you can't call where he was calling to reach Mike and ask for feria every little while. It just don't work like that. Now you're taking from a Billy, and that's what you're not gonna do. Within time, we started doing some deals with the Árabes, right? Where he was coming up, but I believe he forgot about Mike, right? To the sense that there was no more response, and of course, that worrying is because of the dangling that at one point Mike had on him starts running circles in your head, right? And but that's a no-no. You see, wherever you're at, you gotta concentrate on what's in front of you on that jardín. You can't really let your mind space out to a different spot. I know it sounds scandalous, but you may have loved ones, you may have family, whatever. But if you don't keep your eyes focused on what's happening, it could eventually take your career. But the reason why I know this camarada, there was an issue one time, and it had to do with this out of it that basically owed him, right? He owed him a good chunk of feria. Would you say wasn't, let's just say $100, right? It was something, basically he was gonna move on him. I like the camarada. He's a firmes camarada. So I didn't want him to go solo. I'd just be sincere. And I asked for permission, like, hey, let me go with him as a shadow. And I got told that, I got given the permission, but I got tongue lashed, right, by Sana and told me you have bigger things. You can't be chasing some fool's dope, you know. And I understood that, but I wanted to do the camarada a favor. If he went, took care of business, no problems, it was a dead issue, right? I wanted to shatter him because Arabes, they're with their business, right? Usually when you take off on one, they all take off. They take care of their people in that sense, right? I don't know, it's because they feel they're constantly attacked or whatever, but that's why I wanted to go, pick up a fierro and just shadow him. If others jumped in, of course, run up in there and we're gonna get stomped in regardless, right? Because I'm sure Billy's camaradas ain't gonna jump in because it's a dick. But everything went to the dot. We went to the angle on the yard we needed to go. Spooky went. He took care of business. We walked off. We walked off. Excuse me. There was no telling none of that, right? But for some reason, his avenue just collapsed, right? It's just what happens, right? You try to do things on your own, and so doors stop closing. Wherever his holler was coming from, or whoever was reaching it to him, I'm pretty sure it had to do with Pomona, right? And I'm pretty sure the one behind was Mike, because you see, again, Mike had issues on Billy's that had something going where he wasn't there, and when Mike would find out, he would shut that down for Billy's. So it should have been expected, as a camarada, you minimize this Billy. Whatever he finds out you're going, he's gonna shut it down. And at the same time, he shut the door down with the Billys and the feds, right? Because of his loyalty to Mike. Well, that's how the Billys looked at it, right? Again, I knew a different angle, right? But nevertheless, the homie would go on three different things about dope like that, up until the point that oh, which Billy ain't important, but Billy on the yard with us just say we don't need extra problems. Remove them, get them off the yard. And what can one do? I was close to headed back, or at least going back, right? And they just told me like, Chino, Kyle, vamos up acá. Basically took me to the other angle of the yard, which it was dumb, right? Because I ain't that stupid. I know, for example, if I have something coming, the first thing I would tell a good camarada that was with me is, fool, this is coming. Vete, let it happen. Don't get involved. It happened with my homie Creeper in Ironwood, where he wanted uh he wanted to ride with me in Chales. Again, part of being a homie is taking care of a homie, right? The right way. But anyways, Sana felt that I might get involved, right? I wasn't homie Sally. None of that. If Sally's is different trip, right? Let's just be sincere. But they removed Spooky, and again, it goes back to the habit, right? We tend to focus too much on time. That's why I always like I have a full program organized. Don't let the mind slip, because there's more than one way to crash inside. But basically, you guys know Mike never spoke for the homie. And again, he just got removed from this yard where he ended up. Well, we had some issues, but I wasn't there personally. I couldn't really speak on them, right? Because it would be hearsay. But mainly what I want to focus on is, you see how it works? I stated it from the beginning. What you do for one peely on one yard has no meaning on the next yard for the others. Remember, they're at each other's throat. Loyalty to a peely it's going to get you caught up. I'm just being sincere. I don't know if you guys notice whenever someone puts out something or something, when a camarada says, my tío, or starts warring with other camaradas because, oh, the pili you're under is this, and that. I'm with the good one, just estoy con el bueno. If you and that type of thing. Tell me what happens to them. Last I heard, the homie's still doing his thing, right? He's been around heavy hitters, straight up. But I don't really know why the loyalty with Mike. We all know if you survive in the game, it ain't wise. You might be from your town, but you could be from your neighborhood. It has no meaning. Don't lose sight of that. Again, there's a reason why Pomona 12th Street homies, most of them are with different angles. Think about that. I leave that with that thought. You know, Usually when I speak about a Pili, there's a lot of people that come on and, oh, that's my big homie, that's my big homie, that's my big homie. Why doesn't Pomona 12th Street look at Mike as so? Out of all Pomona, you know, that's why I always say, be smart. Everything is out there for you to analyze. But I'll leave this with a little glimpse. You could be loyal, you could be true, you could be standing in the middle of a yard with people talking down to you because of the loyalty you have for a Pili. But ask yourself, is that Pili going to answer up? Are you going to risk it? My advice is if you're not there, don't go there. There's nothing there. Be smart. Stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones.